Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pinwheel card. This is my version of a pinwheel card. There are lots of versions on the internet, quite a few by Stampin' Up demonstrators. The problem I found was that a lot of them are American demonstrators and their paper is a slightly different size to ours. And I also like to be quite economic with my cardstock, so I wanted to work out a version of this pinwheel card that I could get out of one sheet of A4 cardstock and with a little tiny bit left, and that would also fit into a standard C6 envelope when it's folded flat. So I'm going to take this one out of the way. I just wanted you to be able to see on the top that pinwheel shape. Take this one out of the way. This one has some stamps on it from the new spring and summer seasonal catalogue, which went live on the 4th of January, and I will show you that again, but we're going to have a look at the stamps on that at another time. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is take our A4 sheet of cardstock, yes this is half a sheet, and cut it in half lengthways. So that's 10.5 centimetres is a perfect halfway cut. Okay, then we're going to put one of those pieces to one side, and then we need to cut a piece to 5 3/4 inches. So I'll apologise for starting in centimetres and then swapping to inches, but the rest will be in inches, just because it was easier to work it out that way. Okay, so we're cutting this at 5 3/4. Just put that piece to the side, and then we are going to score. So we're going to get this dark blade out of the way because that's the cutting one. We're going to score at 3/4 of an inch. One and a half inches, 2 1/4, and then at 3. So you can see there's a pattern there. It's every 3/4 of an inch is what we're scoring at to get that pinwheel box in the middle of the card. I have made this in a bigger size, and if anybody wants the details of the bigger size, which fits into an A5 envelope, let me know and I'll tell you the dimensions for the base and the panels. Okay, right, so I'm just going to move the trimmer out of the way. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. We're going to put this piece to one side that we've scored. Next, we need to cut the panels. Now, ordinarily, I'd be cutting some of the panels out of what was left of this if I hadn't messed up this video and had to restart by cutting it too short. Okay, happens to the best of us. So for the panels, you need 3 panels, and you've already got the depth right because obviously it's half of an A4, the same as the card base, and we need to cut 3 of these at 2 3/4 inches. So just make sure that you've got it level in your trimmer. 2 3/4, and we need 3. 1 2 3. Obviously what's left of the bit we've just scored makes up the 4th side, and you can see these are the leftover pieces that I've got. This is the one where I scored wrong. I cut it too short. So I didn't score wrong, I scored right, but I cut it too short. And this, so you do have a little bit of cardstock left over. Okay, and then we might as well cut our matting layers while we're here. So they are a little bit smaller, so we need to cut, I'm using some basic white here. We need to cut that down to 3 7/8, which is there. So it is literally just a sliver off the side. And then we're going to cut this at 2 1/2. So we are 1/4 of an inch smaller all round than the original panels that we've just cut. So the basic rule of thumb is if you're cutting in inches, make it 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way round to get that nice border. And we need 4 of these. And if you're cutting in centimetres, I tend to cut it at 1/2 centimetre less. Okay, so you can see those 4 panels came out of half of an A4 sheet of basic white, and there's a little bit left over, which is probably enough to do a sentiment on if you wanted a sentiment. Right, so let's move my trimmer out of the way, and I'm going to bring you some stamps in to have a look at after I've shown you how to make the base. Okay, so these were the bits and pieces that we've got. So these are our panels, so they can go to one side, and these are our 4 matting layers for the 4 panels. So what we need to do is fold on our score lines, and you'll notice that I'm not burnishing these yet with a bone folder, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to dig out my bone folder so I have got it to hand. Now, the reason I haven't burnished these is because unless you've been really accurate with your scoring, you need to make sure that this is going to line up before you burnish it and glue it down properly. So I'm using wet glue for this. Now, if I show you that, you can see that the 4 sections, that section in there should butt up against the side section here, but we need to make sure it folds flat both ways, otherwise you won't be able to get it in your envelope. So that's one way, that's obvious. And then we need to fold it the other way, and this is where you'll find out if your score lines aren't accurate. There we go, that one's okay. So now what we can do is add some glue, and I'm using wet glue just to give me a little bit of wiggle room. And if you just fold in 2 of the sections, so I've got 2 sections here and 2 sections under, and then what you can do is literally fold that again and give it a good burnish this time. So I'm going to bring in my bone folder, and then we're just going to swing it back the other way and make sure that it goes both ways, and it does. Okay, so you'll know you've got your score lines nice and accurate if it folds both ways. So you can see it will fold over that way and it will fold over that way, and this is important for when we put it in the envelope. And I'm just giving that edge where we've got the glue just another burnish, just to make sure that's nicely pressed down. Okay, so the other sections that we have cut, these are the other 3 blades of our pinwheel. Now, you might find it easier to decorate these sections, stick these on here and then attach it to the card, or you might find it easier to stick these on and then do your stamping, and that's what I'm going to do. But just to give you an idea, I'm just going to bring in this one. Here's one I made earlier in true Valerie style, so you can see it folds completely flat. And you can see I've used some paper clips, so if you're in a little bit of a muddle about what's got to go where, this is a good way to do it before you've actually glued it down. Okay, so that's like that. And if you wanted to use some patterned papers on these sections here, now is the time to put your paper on before you stick them on, because it is easier rather than trying to do it once they're stuck on, although you can. It's a personal choice really. But if you're worried about getting it equal all the way around, it's probably best to do it now. Anyway, so I'll put that one to one side and we'll get back to this one. So what you need to do is make sure that you stick the pieces on in the right order. So the first one, I don't know if you can see that. So that's our base card. The first one is going to go on there. Okay. And then the second one is going to go on there like that. And then the third one is going to go on the back. So I find it easier to put the glue on this middle section. So remember, our first one is going on this section here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on there. And then we can put that flat and line this up. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. For some reason that is too big, but we will worry about that in a minute. Oh, goodness me. Okay, so let's just give that a dry. I have no idea why I've done that. Obviously didn't measure very well, did I? But we'll trim that up in a minute. Okay, so the next section has got to go on there. Oh, you know why? I've used the scrap, haven't I? Never mind, I'll trim that down in a minute. It's the right width, it's just the wrong length. Anyway, right, so the next one is going to go on here. Okay, so let's put our glue on this section here. If you are using wet glue like me, you will need to give it a little while to dry and grab. Okay, so let's just make sure we've got that straight. No, it's slipped. This is why I'm using wet glue, so it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, so we've got 2 of our blades, and then the third one has to go on here, like that. So let's put a little bit of glue. So basically we've stuck a blade to 3 of the 4 sides of our middle section. Obviously we don't need to stick a 4th one because that is already there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's obviously not level, not going to stand level because the middle's not level. So I will just need to trim that up. I'm just making sure that all my panels are level at one end. Okay, and then I can go along and trim that up. Okay. Right, so you get the idea. So next we're going to work on our panels to go on those layers. You can see that's too big because these bits are too big, and I should have trimmed them down before I stuck them on, really. But this video is going to take long enough as it is with my adult brain not working properly. So anyway, you can see the middle there. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bring in a really sharp pair of scissors and just trim. Don't do this at home. Level with that middle section. There we go. You can see that was just a fraction too long, so I must have not looked at my trimmer properly. Okay, here we go. That's better. There we are. That's a lot better. Okay, so let's put that to one side and the glue can dry, and we're going to bring in our 4 pieces. Now here's where I want to introduce a couple of new stamp sets to you. The first one I want to show you is a Celebration stamp set. Where did I put it? No idea. I've got so many. Ah, here we go. I've got so many stamp sets laying about on my desk. It's unbelievable. So this is one of the new Celebration stamp sets. So you can get this for free with a £45 spend in the UK. It's got this brilliant little camper van and a little beetle with presents on the top and a sports car with some balloons behind it. You've got 3 greetings. You've got style, or thanks, and driving by just to say hi. So I'm going to use that on this, but before I stamp those images we're going to work on some backgrounds. Okay, so this might get a little bit messy, so I thought it might be quite nice to bring in another new stamp set that we've got. This one is called Ocean Front. It's on page 39 of the new seasonal catalogue. Here we are. And these are the images that are in it. And these are meant to be boulders, I think. This is meant to be a sandy slope, and I'm guessing that's meant to be water. And then we've got a little bit of foliage and this sort of handy splodge. And I'm not really sure what they've intended that to be. Anyway, that's that. So out of this set, I have mounted up this section here and this section here. And I think it doesn't really matter which way you use it up, which way up you use it. Okay, and I actually think this section here would make a, oh sorry for knocking the camera, would make a really good cloud the other way up. Anyway, so let's pop that out of the way. Oh, I'm taking a piece of cardstock with me. And then the other stamp set I wanted to show you is this one, which is on page 43 of the new seasonal catalogue, and it's called On the Horizon. Now I fell in love with this. I love stamps and dies for making backgrounds because they're so versatile. I have what I call a rule of 5. If I can't think of 5 ways of using the stamps or the dies, then I don't buy it because I know it's not going to get enough love on my desk. As soon as I saw this, I knew I had to have it. It's got these gorgeous little enamel pebble shapes as well, which I'm just digging for to show you here. So they're in a couple of different colours, cinnamon cider, dark grey and light grey. I just think they're absolutely adorable. And then also further on in the catalogue, there are these amazing little sea glass shapes as well, little tiny bits of sea glass. which will be great for this kind of card. Okay, so I haven't mounted up any of the stamps for this one. I may well do yet, but what I've actually got out are the dies, and I've gone ahead and die cut some pieces to show you. So what I've actually done is die cut, hopefully you can see that, the little trees on the horizon, which is this one here. I've die cut the little beach huts on the horizon, and I've die cut one of the sort of landmass shapes, if you like. This one here, there are some mountains, there's a sort of a watery shape, and I've die cut this little sort of piece of foliage going along. Okay, so let's put that to one side. Oh, and I've also die cut these two pieces of fence. Not sure if I'm going to use those yet, but we'll see. So let's put that to one side, and I'll start making our card. As I said, some of those stamp sets, extra bits may come out as we go along. You never know. So what I thought might be quite fun was to make a scene for the camper van. Those of you that know me well know that I have a camper van, a Type 2 Volkswagen, which is what this camper van is loosely modelled on. Mine has a bigger roof than that, and it's called Big Bird, and that's why my crafting name is the Crafty Yellow Camper, because she's yellow. Okay, so what we're going to do first is bring in some of these dies. Now, I like to get away to lots of different locations with my husband in our camper van. It's been off the road most of last summer because it needed quite a lot of work. It's 42 years old now. So it's doing well, but it needed quite a lot of work doing to it. So, and obviously the year before with COVID, we didn't really get to go away, only once, because we're all independently sorted out with toilets and what have you. So we were allowed to camp once in the summer, but all the festivals we normally go to have been off. So I've really got my fingers crossed that this year we'll be able to get out and about. I've got tickets booked for Folk in a Field and what have you. So I'm going to use this sort of watery stamp. It's meant to be used that way up, I think, to do the horizon, and then a little bit of sand in front of it. So we'll try that. So I've got some Pacific Point here. I'm just gonna, oh, I like that. I like how you've got those little bits of sort of wavelets in there. So that's that one. And then I'm going to come in with the other one, which is this one. And I think what this is designed to do is to sort of fill in, because it almost matches up, not quite, but almost, and I think that'll be enough to fill in for a sandy beach. So I'm going to bring in some Bumblebee, I think, and that's the colour I'll probably be stamping the camper van in. So I'm going to bring that in, and I don't know if you can see, if I hold this up, these knobbly bits here almost match these little bits here. So let's give that a go, line that up and get some sand in there, and then I think if we stamp it again, we can sort of pretty much cover up any white, and that also gives us the different sort of textures of the sand. So I quite like that actually, but I stand by, you could use it up that way as well to go across a beach like that. You could use it in the sky as a cloud, obviously not with yellow ink on. So I'm just going to give that a quick clean because I think that's going to come out again. I'm going to just clean that blue section off as well. Okay, good old chamois. Yeah, again with this one, I've actually used it that way, which is the way it shows on the stamp set, but I think equally you could use it that way as well. Okay, so let's pop them to one side. So what I think we need now is we need a little bit of sky. So what I was thinking, I'm sorry if this this video is going to get a little bit long. Okay, so I'm looking at the different stamps we've got. I'm just wondering if we could use that in a couple of different colours to make a sky. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to put that to one side at the minute. If not, what I'll do, actually no, what we're going to do is we're going to ink with a blending brush. I think for the sky, I want a nice pale sky for a sunny day. But it needs to equally be paler than the Bermuda Bay we've used for the sea. So obviously when you're using our brushes, don't put too much pressure on the handle because the neck is quite thin. It's thin to be flexible, but you don't want to break it. So always start off, you can see I've got a piece of scrap paper here. Always start off and then just go in circular motions over. I think my pull part, yeah, it is pull part. The ink pad might need re-inking, but we don't want too much colour anyway. So there we go. I'll go across there. And that's just taken that whiteness off. Okay, if I hold that up, you can see it's just taken that whiteness off. If I hold a piece of white cardstock next to it, okay, and that will give us a little bit of colour for our sky. And I may well add in some sun on there in a second. So that's the seaside one. So where else do I take my camper van? So we like to go to the woods. So I think what I'm going to do is get out the little border of trees from the stamp set. You'll have to excuse me, I haven't mounted these up yet, but it should still stick to a block. Okay, let's just find a little block to stick that onto. Okay, I think that'll stick on there. So on this one, I think I'd like to have some woods. So we need a green. So what I'm going to bring in is shaded spruce. I'm just going to stamp that on my scrap paper so I can see how dark it is. And it is quite dark, but I like that. But I think we're going to need some background before we stamp that. So I think what we're going to do is bring back in that pool party, and we'll get some sky in this one, just a little bit at the top. You can see it when I'm using my finger on the brush, so I'm not putting too much pressure onto the neck of the blending brush. Okay, so that's a little bit of blue sky, and I feel like we need a background to those trees, but let's just see. I might have to blend over the trees, so we're just going to go along the sort of coastline, if you like. I'll stamp off, so we've got a little line of trees there. And I feel like we need something on the bottom because I've put a smudge on it with my thumb. But I feel like we need a little bit of sort of ground in there. So I'm going to bring another blending brush in with some soft suede this time. Yeah, I think that'll do it. And we'll again start off and just blend over in circular movements. There we go, and we've got some ground, so I think that'll do for our second one. Okay, so we've got a wood, a seaside, and we like to go to places like Derbyshire, and there are hills in Derbyshire. So I think what we're going to do, again, this pool party's getting a lot of use, isn't it? I think what we'll do is we will bring back in the pool party, and we will give ourselves some sky. Well, it doesn't really matter if you get patches that are darker than other areas, because that gives you the illusion of clouds. I don't know if you can see that there. You probably can't. Sort of there, it's a little bit more white, and that gives you the illusion of some clouds in the sky. Okay, and then we're going to go back in again with the soft suede for the bottom. Again, starting off and blending it over. I'm using this quite lightly. Okay, so that's our ground and our sky. And then I think what we're going to do is bring in some mountains. So rather than stamp them on, I think what I'm going to do is use one of the die cuts I prepared earlier. So this is the sort of like grassland die cut, and you can see it's way too long for the mat we're using for this card today, but we can cut that down. So what I'm going to do is pop a little bit of glue on one end. Not too much because I don't want it to squirt out. Okay, and we're going to pop that on there like that. I'm just trying to make sure I've got it level. You can see there's a tiny bit of glue come out. And then what I'm going to do is bring in my snips and just cut that section off there like that. And then what we can do is reuse the bit that we've just cut off. Coming back this way, I think. But I think what we're going to do is pop that on some mini dimensionals. Hopefully got some on my desk somewhere. Nope. Okay, I've got normal size dimensionals, so we'll get one behind there. And then I'll just use my Teflon scissors to cut an edge. Don't use your snips for cutting dimensionals and sticky stuff, otherwise they'll get gummed up. A pair of Teflon scissors is always a good idea to have. It's always a good idea if you actually get the dimensionals stuck to the it as well. Unfortunately, Stampin' Up don't sell Teflon scissors. We used to sell some bigger size scissors as well, but they seem to have been discontinued. Maybe it's something that I should suggest, is a pair of Teflon scissors for cutting sticky bits. Okay, so let's just take the back ends off those. I wonder how many of you that are watching this are like me and end up with dimensional backs all over the floor of your craft room. Okay, so we're going to stick that down like that. So we've got sort of a hillside going on there. So I'll add some more bits to that in a minute. So that's 3 of our 4 sides done. And on the 4th one, I thought it might be quite nice to have a little bit of a sunset. So what we're going to do for this one is go in with some oranges and yellows, I think, or maybe some pinks. I'm going to pull out some Calypso coral and a clean brush. Actually, no, won't do that one yet. We'll do that one in a second. Sorry, people, my desk is so overcrowded. Right, we're going in with Petal Pink to start with. This is a new ink pad, so I'm not sure how. Oh, it's quite pink. There we go, that sort of orangey sky. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of saffron. Just grab another brush. We're onto my spares now. Okay, a little bit of saffron just around the edges. And then we're going to come in with a little bit of Calypso coral, just to give us that little sort of sun splash in the middle. Okay, and then we need some ground. So I think we'll better come back in with our soft suede for some ground. And you can see with a few different colours, it's quite easy to make up different scenes. And they don't look much at the moment, but when we start adding in our die cut bits and pieces, hopefully we'll get a bit more of an effect. Okay, so I'm just going to dump those brushes out of my way for the minute so they don't cover everything in ink. Okay, so I have got 4 sides. So we've got a beach side, we've got a sunset side, we've got a foresty side, and we've got a hillside side. All the places I love to take my camper van. Okay, so for the sunset one, I just feel like we need to add a little bit more into that. And so I'm going to bring in this set. This is one that I loved. and I bought it, but I haven't actually used it much yet. And it's called After the Storm, and I think we're going to go for these sun rays here. It got some really nice sentiments in it that I really liked. And yeah, a little sunshine for your day. Even the darkest night will pass and the sun will rise. You've been on my mind, and just because. Oh, lovely sentiments. Okay, so these, I appreciate these sun rays are way too big for our tiny little piece of cardstock, but I just feel like we need something up there in the sky. So we're going to go with some So Saffron and see what happens. I might be about to totally mess this up, but we'll see. Let's just stamp that and see how dark it is. Oh, okay, I quite like that actually. So let's ink that up, and you can see I've just put a smudge across there, and we're just going to stamp just the end of it across there just to give us that sort of sun's rays. And then I'm going to go in again. Yeah, so it's a sort of second generation Stampin', just to give us a sort of bit on the water. And a little bit up the top there. Okay. Now, I sort of feel like we do actually need a sun there, and I'll maybe do that in a second. Okay, let's just add that to our pile of things to clean. Okay, so, right, let's start building these up. So, I'm a little bit annoyed that that has gone there onto the water. I didn't really want that there, but I might be able to blend over that with a little bit of more Bermuda Bay. So let's just have a little go at that. Just got one more little brush clean. I need to buy some more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just try and blend that out a little bit by going back over with some Bermuda Bay. Okay, that'll be fine by the time we've got our little camper van in. Okay, so now what we need to do is cut some camper vans. So I'm going to bring in some more basic white. Excuse me, I thought I had a piece of scrap on my desk. I've used it. Okay, so I've just got another sheet of basic white here. You can see I get really messy when I'm blending things. I'm just going to cut this in half. Oh, that was one of the blending brushes hitting the floor. Okay, we'll worry about that later. I always make a complete mess when I'm making a video and then do clean up afterwards. Just trying to get out of the way. Right, okay, so we want our camper van, and I think that this will be best stamped in the colour basic grey. I don't like using black. For some things you need to have black, but generally I don't like using black. So let's ink up this camper van and have a little stamp up there. There we go. Right, we want a couple of those. There we are. And then I'm going to bring in the little bug beetle. It's got a pile of presents on the top, and I don't necessarily want those, but we can trim those off because we're going to have to fussy cut this anyway. So the reason I'm putting a beetle on here is that my daughter actually owns a beetle as well. We're a bit of a Volkswagen family. I drive a modern Volkswagen for my daily drive, and she drives a Golf for her daily drive as well. So what I'm going to do is just quickly fussy cut these out. Now what you could do, if you're careful how you cut the presents off, is leave the presents for something else. Could pop them on top of the camper van actually, if you wanted to make it a birthday card. Okay, so I'm just going to head around the edges of the camper van. You'll have to excuse me for being off screen for a second, just so I can get where I need to be to cut it out. They've even put a dinky little exhaust on the bottom, which is so funny. Around the wheels. Now you could colour this with blends, you could colour them with Stampin' Right markers, or you could watercolour pencils. You could use pretty much any medium actually, or you could do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use an ink pad and a blender pen in a second. So that's one camper van. I'm sorry if this is a bit like watching paint dry. Just checking the time. I'll try and keep these videos as short as possible, but this has been a bit of a long one. Trying not to cut the little exhaust off. So this Celebration set will retire when Celebration is finished at the end of February. But I can see this is going to be one that's going to stay on my shelves, and I can think of lots of ways already of incorporating this into a Christmas card for all my VW friends, since we belong to a club. Okay, so we're just going to go in and do the same thing with the beetle. And they have cleverly left it on that stamp so that the presents are not directly joined to the roof of the beetle. So I think whoever designed this set must have realised that